The PlayStation conference was this week. Everybody is talking about it, and myself and Paul Tassi will right now. Paul, what'd you think?
Well, the last 10 minutes were very phenomenal, and everything else before that, it was kind of a little hit or miss, but I think they delivered enough of the big announcements that people were hoping to see to consider this a pretty unqualified success, in my opinion.
Let's start with the positive, because we can get to the overall show grading and opinion later, but what was the biggest reveal, in your opinion?
In my opinion, it was Wolverine.
Yeah.
I am rarely surprised that much in this industry these days, and everything either leaks or people have inside information or blah, blah, blah. I didn't know anything about that, nor can I really even logically comprehend how Insomniac did Spider-Man Remaster for PS5, Miles Morales, Ratchet and Clank, and they're doing Spider-Man 2 and Wolverine. It seems like Wolverine is very, very far out, so I guess that would be the difference, and Spider-Man is pretty far out in 2023. And yet, I mean, that is just a bonkers workload. So I hope they're doing it safely, but Insomniac is kind of on fire lately.
It's pretty insane to even think about the fact that there is going to be a new Wolverine game, because one of my favorite games of all time is X-Men Origins Wolverine. It was by Raven Software. It was tied to a movie release, but they have been developing a like human degradation system for Wolverine just for fun. And then they got the contract to make the game. At least that's what I've heard through the grapevine. And honestly, it still holds up to this day. It has a lot of fan service. It has like his X-Force costume. It has the yellow costume. It has the old school costume that you can unlock. I have it all unlocked on my 360. I played
I was going to say, I was like, are you talking about the old game or the new game?
No, okay. no, the old one. And I had a blast with it. A lot of little teases in the trailer to like Hulk on the license plate. He's clearly in, I believe it's Madripoor, right?
Oh, see, I didn't catch any of this stuff. I only watched the trailer once. So.
It like Wolverine being in that bar. It's like ripped right out of the comics. And I'm like, if anybody can do it, Insomniac can do it. Right. I have utmost confidence in their ability to make a great Wolverine game. In my dreams, I imagine that in 20 years, Paul, when you and I are like 60 years old, we'll be like, and now the new Insomniac game, they have all the heroes in one place.
Individual hero game for every Marvel character. It's like the Avengers, but spread out over 20 years. I am curious to see what they do with Wolverine, given that, like, he's a very cool character, and it's obviously going to be like a brawler to a certain extent, but like, it's so different than Spider-Man, and like, he's not going to have a bunch of like gadgets and things, and like, his traversal will be totally different. So like, I'm sure they're going to do a great job with it. It's just, it's such a wildly different character. It's like almost the exact opposite of Spider-Man in so many ways. So I'm very curious just to see how they kind of handle his kit. And you're right, that Origins was a great Wolverine game. It was a terrible movie, but it was a great Wolverine game. And that leads me to my core question about this game. Do you know what it is?
No, what?
Is it going to be M-rated?
Oh, it has to be. It absolutely has to be to do a Wolverine game.
You would think that. And like, but I don't know. Like, I wonder if Disney Marvel will allow that now that they fully own the rights to it. Like, obviously Fox did. They were cool with that for Logan and stuff, but will Disney greenlight an M-rated super gory Wolverine game? I don't know. I guess we'll find out.
I bet Insomniac has something concepted. They'll probably focus on the story. Like Raven did it already, and that game is regarded as one of the best games. Little known fact about me, when I was a teenager in high school, the way I learned HTML, image editing, and all that stuff, I ran the unofficial Wolverine homepage. It was like the #1 Wolverine fan site. And I am such a huge fan. I think I've played every Wolverine game that's ever come out. And there was one where Mark Hamill did the voice, and it dealt with his feral senses, and he would be able to detect like bombs and stuff underground. There's the whole Weapon X storyline. I mean, if it is taking place in, I hope I got it right, I think it's Madripoor, and like it has anything to do with Lady Deathstrike, like that's its own whole story. Wolverine just has so many beats that you could go to. Now, they purposefully didn't show his face. Like, what sort of look are they going to go for? Are they going to go for a Hugh Jackman look? Are they going to go for more generic, like, Wolverine look? I'm really, really curious about this game. There's so many questions. I'm really, really excited to see what a company like Insomniac does with it. And let's be honest, they've been doing Ratchet and Clank. They did Spider-Man. I think they're ready to slice and dice. They're ready to get that M rating. They're ready to get some gore kills in there.
I do feel like for games, it doesn't matter as much, like the M versus teen rating. Because I mean, like all of the most popular games are M rated. I mean, GTA 5 is M rated. Like every, Call of Duty's M rated. It's not really like theaters where it's like you're chopping X amount off your box office if you rate your superhero movie R instead of PG-13. Like I feel like the game space is a lot more forgiving. So ultimately, I really just think it comes down to Disney, whether or not they're like okay or not. But I don't think Insomniac would have wanted to do it if they couldn't make it M-rated, honestly, but I'm hoping for it. Yeah, for sure.
I have to imagine that they're like, we have to do it this way. They probably have something in mind. I'm really excited to see what they do. I could honestly just talk about Wolverine the whole time, but let's move on now. If your favorite reveal was Wolverine, you can say that, but then give me your second favorite. So the next question we had talked about was, what was your favorite reveal of the whole show, Paul?
I guess I can't really say Wolverine just because it was such a short teaser, but obviously I think the closer Ragnarok was extremely strong. Maybe it wasn't like the most unexpected thing in the world because it's like, hey, it's more God of War and here's some new characters. Like it's a little different because it's not like we're seeing this totally new vision of God of War for the first time. Like it's a sequel to the game we had. Introducing, more characters from Norse mythology. There's Thor and Odin and Tyr. And I really like the Thor design where he's just this chonky dude. It's about as far away from the Marvel version as you can imagine. So I think that's pretty cool. Seeing Atreus grow up a little bit, at least enough so his voice changes. And then he was like running around.
Atreus, sir.
Atreus? What did I say? Atreus. I just call him Boy, so I don't know his actual name. Okay. Or Loki. But he's riding around like a ghost horse or a ghost antelope or something in one of the combat scenes. So that there was a lot of seemingly gameplay in that. What we didn't get was a release window or kind of really any mention of that, I don't think. But I am also not super surprised about that either.
So what did you think about the criticism that a lot of people had online of God of War doesn't look good enough? Because for me, I'll just real quick, my reaction to that is God of War already looked stunning. It doesn't necessarily need a ton more push to look that much better. And we're also at this point where they make God of War look so good on even a base PS4. It was upgraded on the PS4 Pro. And now you have a PS5 where, yeah, you're going to get a few more enhancements, but how much further can they really push that game? It already looks so good. So how do you feel about the whole graphical argument I've seen online?
I literally didn't even see that. I'm kind of surprised to hear it. I mean, it does look like the PS4 game because that's kind of the image we have in our minds. Like, I think once I'm seeing it not on a live stream and I'm seeing the 4K rendered, whatever, 60 FPS gameplay that it's probably going to have on PS5, it'll probably look absolutely stunning. You couldn't have expected some sort of sweeping graphical transformation like from PS4 Pro. Like that just was never going to happen. I'm sure it'll just run better, be somewhat sharper. And I mean, we just saw bits and pieces of areas, and like I think they were going more for combat rather than the most like sweeping cinematic vistas and stuff. I think they wanted to mostly get into the action, and I understand also why it's being released for PS4. I mean, there's 116 million PS4s. Like, that is not surprising. And if it left that console behind, maybe it could push it a little further in some ways. But I think there doesn't need to be like a hard break, and that they're probably still going to be able to push it as much as they really want to anyway.
So for me, I'm already sold on God of War. I wouldn't care if it launched with PS4 Pro graphics anyway, because I already love the game. They already enhanced that game for free on the PlayStation 5. God of War, it was probably one of my favorite games. I think it was my game of the year that year. Like there was nothing that even came close.
That was my game of really the whole console generation, honestly. Yeah. In terms of at least single player standalone games, that was mine for sure.
I would agree, actually. Yeah, it's phenomenal. And what I tweeted was, when God of War Ragnarok isn't the biggest thing revealed at your show, you know you had some damn good reveals at your show. Because everybody's been waiting to see Ragnarok, and honestly, it's kind of the footnote of the show. And real quick, my favorite reveal was the Star Wars remake. That is a huge get for Sony. Like I can't believe they have that as a timed exclusive.
That's a very interesting situation.
Well, we have on the Xbox side of things, you have like Stalker 2. That's a big get. It's like a 3-month window, right? Mm-hmm. But Stalker 2 is not Star Wars. It's not Spider-Man. It's not Wolverine. Those are household names. They have bigger mind share and market share than a game like Stalker. And looking at some of the titles side by side, you can see, you might be able to hear my son in the background.
Sorry.
You can see just like what Sony has, and this is by Clobril. I feel like he's giving Xbox a little bit of a knock because there's like things that were already out on PlayStation here, like Deathloop listed. But you got Spider-Man 2 and Wolverine, God of War Ragnarok, Gran Turismo 7, Horizon Forbidden West, 5 games coming. And then on Xbox, you have more. I would say on the Xbox side, the Indiana Jones game, if that winds up being console exclusive, that will be a big hit for them. But nothing. And I like, look, I'm an Xbox fan, but Halo versus Star Wars is going to sell better every time. It's Star Wars, you know? So the fact that they have a console exclusive of one of the most well-regarded games of all time, it's a huge get for Sony. It's undeniably one of the biggest gets they've ever had. What was your sort of response to the KOTOR remake, not remaster? This isn't like an HD up. This is probably like similar to what they're doing with Dead Space.
So that's one I would have. So I was very excited about the announce, and I was surprised to see it as like a Sony thing. It reminded me of like, Sony's like publishing it, I think, or they're like acting as publisher for this other company that's making it. And it reminded me of when like Xbox kind of stepped in to work on the Tomb Raider, one of the Tomb Raider games, and then that had timed exclusivity. So I would assume this is at least a year of exclusivity on Sony's side for this. My only thing is like hearing that it's a remake, not just like a refresh, is exciting. I just kind of want to know what level it's going to get up to. Like how extensive are we talking? Because like full confession, I have never played KOTOR. I missed it at the time. I wasn't really into RPGs when I was younger, and it just the turn-based stuff it turned me off. And then I tried to play it maybe like 5 or 6 or 7 years after it came out on like original Xbox, and it was so dated. I'm like, I can't do it. Like I have no fond memories associated with this. So I am extremely excited about this because this will be my first real playthrough of KOTOR, and so I'm very curious just to see like. I'm obviously not expecting like God of War graphics or something like that, but I am curious as to what level the remake is going to come up to. Because like, yeah, they have the script and they have the encounter design and stuff, but what all will be changing? Are they going to stick with like more turn-based combat? Will they have some sort of new system that doesn't involve that to evolve it, or will they stay true to the original? So that's one that I'm excited about, and yet I have a lot of kind of questions about it to kind of see how that's going to be realized.
Yeah, looking at some of the games Aspyr, the company working on it, have been involved with: Star Wars Republic Commando port, Stubbs the Zombie and Rebel Without a Pulse, Ruby, Grim Eclipse, Star Wars Jedi Knight, Star Wars Episode 1 Racer in 2020, Sid Meier's Civilization. So they've done a lot of like ports, but this is a full-on remake, and I am a little curious as to what's going to happen here, because this is it's going to be challenging for them, right? To go from from
that's why I'm trying to lower my expectations a little bit.
Remake. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's a great opener. It's a great teaser. If they're able to get it anywhere close to like the Dead Space style remake that we've been seeing, then it's going to be great. But
Dead Space was even like newer than that. So it's just. I'm certainly wondering.
I'm curious about it. I think no matter what, it's a huge gap for them. Just don't make it a car battler, because we've seen how that went for Marvel Midnight Suns. Not so
you're so anti
I'm into it actually, but everybody seems to hate it. Like I played this game Marvel Overpower when I was in
Yeah.
flashback to high school again, and it was a card battler. So to me, I made that correlation. And
Okay.
you mix that with XCOM gameplay, I'm into it. Anyway, so for me, that was my favorite reveal. Was there anything missing that you expected to see at this show?
Naughty Dog.
Oh yeah.
I know we're getting the
Whoa,
Uncharted
Uncharted
Lost
4.
Legacy, a game that does not need to be remastered. I don't think it's like probably the best looking game overall on PS4. So like I'm sure it'll look great on PS5. It's just kind of like a whatever thing. Like I guess if you missed it somehow and also somehow have gotten your hands on a PS5, like go for it. But like that's not a game that has particularly much replay value. Like I don't see a need to like go back and replay Uncharted campaigns, especially like a year or two later or whatever, however long it's been. Like it's not like some classic title from way back. It's like this just came out not that long ago. I think people.
It's older than you think. Like I think it's
Is it
5
what year
years
was
old.
it?
I want to say it was
Okay.
2016, but
Yeah, maybe.
I get what you're saying. I'll Google it really quick.
But I mean, the things that we were kind of expecting to see one of was either this rumored Last of Us remake, which again is supposed to be like another remake, which you would assume would be like The Last of Us with The Last of Us 2 graphics or something like that, or this Last of Us Factions multiplayer standalone thing they're working on. My impression for that is like it's not far enough along yet for them to show much, and like they're still hiring up for it and working on it. But I'm also willing to cut them some slack because, like, Last of Us 2 just won like a bazillion game of the year awards like a year ago, so it's not exactly like they've been resting around and stuff. And like, Lord knows of all the studios that are like overworking themselves to produce things, Naughty Dog is pretty high on that list. So they got to take time and just not show anything for a while. Like I get it. I just was a little surprised to only see Uncharted from them.
Yeah, I honestly I agree. Why Uncharted 4? Like if you're gonna redo Uncharted, redo 1 and 2, even 3. Like 2 is again one of my favorite games of all time. Like Uncharted 2 is seriously probably one on my top 10 games of ever. So the fact that they're deciding to do 4, which doesn't need that much work, instead of like 1 or 2, or like even 3 was pretty stellar for even modern day standards. So that was a little weird to me. I was like, oh, they're going to redo all of the Uncharted games on PS5. That makes total sense.
It is a PC, so I guess people who haven't, gotten to experience that may get to experience it for the first time because it's finally coming to PC. But like, this is the whole like kind of new Sony philosophy of like, yeah, our first parties are coming to PC 5 years later. Like,
yeah,
it's it's good eventually, but it's not exactly what we're seeing over at Xbox, where it's just automatically on PC at launch.
Yeah, agreed. I would have loved to seen more from that team. What was the next thing that we wanted to discuss? I don't really have much more to say, but it was really, really weird not to see that. There were all these rumors. Where was the infamous rumor, right? Where was Lost Factions?
Oh.
Where was the PS6 or the PS5 Pro? I'm sorry. Yeah.
We don't need any hardware upgrades yet. They can't even make the current system.
Yeah. So before we start getting critical about the overall programming of the show, we didn't really talk about Spider-Man 2, which very clearly features Venom, and a lot of people are saying the narrator is probably the hunter, right? So
yeah, I accidentally recorded a video for Forbes before this where I was like, oh yeah, I think that's Electro that's talking. So I thought I saw like electricity or something, and then I'm like, oh wait, no, that's definitely Kraven the Hunter. Okay, well, too late now.
Well, what do you think of the reveal? I was so excited to see Venom. I think it's going to be one of the cooler villains. I hope you get to play as him at some point.
That is my main thing.
Yeah.
I would certainly be excited to play Spider-Man 2, even if you're just Peter and Miles, I guess. But obviously, I would love to see what Insomniac could do with a full Venom kit. Like, imagine all the symbiote powers that they could come up with for traversal and my only concern is like that would be like a level of work so far beyond. Like, they would have to design an entirely new kit with barely any crossover from current Spider-Man. So you design Miles Morales, he's like not that dissimilar from Peter Parker, but if they did Venom, that would be something. I feel like Venom is having a moment where he's got his own, trilogy of films, and he's like his own hero in the Sony universe now. So like, this might be like a time where be like, okay, well, we're teaming up with Venom reluctantly to fight Kraven or whoever. So the vibe I got from that was that we would probably be able to play Venom. It just is like so much like extra work for them to make an entirely new kit based on him.
Well, wait, they basically did it for Miles, so I don't think it's that.
Well, no, I just said though, like Miles is kind of similar though. I mean, they gave him more gadgets and stuff, and like electric punches and whatever. But I mean, Venom, that's a whole kind of other level. It would be like, I don't know. It's almost a entirely separate hero from the ground up. It's like, Wolverine, but
yeah, but they have so like let's think about what they have. They have a great engine. They have a world built. They can update the world in certain ways. If the main thing that they need to worry about, or one of their main priorities, is building out a Venom kit, Miles Morales was wrapped in 2020. They did some enhancements to the product to allow like a middle of the ground with ray tracing and the 60 FPS mode. But for the most part, they have had 2021, 2022, and the game will launch sometime in 2023. So 3 years to develop an all-new character with a kit.
They also made Ratchet and Clank, and they also are making Wolverine. Yeah, but well, I guess so. I guess traversal could stay the same because he's still swinging on webs essentially. I don't know. I think it's certainly possible. And I hope that's the case.
They've probably been working on it for like 6 years too. It's not like this reveal was accidental. Yeah.
Well, and they were even teasing Venom at the end of the first game. So I think this was probably definitely their long-term plan. And I don't know. I think it would be a missed opportunity if they didn't end up having Venom. And yet I'm sure the game would still be good anyway.
The final thing that we were going to discuss, I'm really stoked for Spider-Man 2. The final thing we were going to discuss was like an overall rating of the show. Now, first of all, I think what people are going to remember are the things that we've discussed at the top of the show. People are going to walk away remembering Wolverine, Spider-Man 2, God of War Ragnarok, and Star Wars, right? Like that's what the takeaway is going to be from the show. But the overall show, rating it, for me, it had a lot of boring parts, right? Like really strong opener. And honestly, that carried me through all the way until they started doing it at the final 10 minutes with the boom, boom, boom reveals, right? It was good to see a mention of Forspoken and what's going on there. I'm kind of digging the Chronicles of Narnia vibe that I'm getting from the game. We got to see Alan Wake remastered. My main issue with Alan Wake Remastered is, okay, like if I played the PC version, what enhancements am I really getting on console that I haven't been able to experience? Hopefully they can outline that a little bit better. The GTA 5 announcement, like that, for me, I'm just like, okay, like, yeah, how are you charging for it again? Is it a full $70?
Oh, they're absolutely charging for it again.
Yeah, is it $60? Like
is it 60 or 70 is the real question.
I didn't see anything in that trailer that I'm like, whoa, I gotta get Grand Theft Auto 5 again.
Significant improvements. I don't know. That for me, the part of the show that it felt like they could have cut a lot of the third party stuff that just like is not Sony specific. It's like we have an ad deal with Sony, and so GTA showing up, as excited as I am for the new Wonderlands game, that didn't need to be there. It's not a PlayStation only game. There's a big one that I'm forgetting, but they did this. Oh, Guardians of the Galaxy. It's like we
that's
just
a
saw
big
like
one
a
for
20,
you. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but it's big for Square Enix, in their portfolio. But like they did a 25-minute demo of that, like at E3 at their show. So like, what's another trailer for Guardians of the Galaxy at this point? That's when it felt more just like we're just like advertising for something, or like even Deathloop. Deathloop comes out in like 5 days. It's like, and we've seen like 9, different reveals of Deathloop. So like at that point, you're just showing a commercial. Whereas at the very end, it's like, okay, well now we get to the real stuff. Like there was even like a break point. They're like, all right, we have all these first party things. This is what you're here for. And then it was like 10 minutes of straight, like pretty blockbuster trailers. And then I really liked the interview segment they did at the end. I thought that was a good structure to kind of just do trailer, and then not have like interviews in between all of them and just kind of stack those at the end for like the most important games. I thought that was a welcome format, because burying those inside these kind of shows at like a live E3 show can kind of be a little exhausting. So I thought that was like a good optional segment if you wanted to stick around and watch all that.
Yeah, I agree. So like, what was your overall take on the show? They had some big hits in here, but they also had a lot of cross-platform stuff and a lot of stuff that like Rainbow Six Extraction is doing nothing for me personally.
Nope. Yeah, I don't care about that game at all.
Ghostwire Tokyo, timed exclusive, looks scary, looks spooky. I'm into it, but again, like in the back of all of our heads, we're like, okay, that's the Xbox game.
Parasite Eve, and,
right? Yeah. Project Eve looks
Project
cool.
Eve.
I like it. Looks sort of giving me Bayonetta vibes. Good combat, but sort of like, I don't know. So, what was your overall impression?
My overall impression is still very positive. Like, yeah. I can't pretend it's not. I mean, KOTOR, Spider-Man 2, Wolverine, God of War. Like, that's like 2 more big reveals than I even thought there was going to be. Mm-hmm. My like bare minimum was like close with God of War. Maybe we'll get like Naughty Dog Factions or something. But even though we didn't have Naughty Dog, there was so much other stuff and 2 giant Insomniac projects, even if they are far away. I couldn't end disappointed with that. Like, that was more than I was expecting, honestly. So I'm still coming away very positive.
What would your letter grade be?
Letter grade, an A-.
Yeah, honestly, you know what? I'm about at an A- also. Okay. Great reveals, really, really exciting stuff. Is it their best conference that they've ever done? No, not by a mile. Like, I don't think you can top when they reveal God of War and a new Kojima game on the same conference, right? So no, I don't think it's the best conference they've ever done. Honestly, one of my big criticisms are that Gran Turismo 7's been in the cooker too long. It needs to come out. There's a ton of third-party racing games coming out. There's Forza Horizon 5 coming out. Motorsport 7's coming out. And those games are looking really, really good. Gran Turismo 7, in my opinion, should have been a launch window game. And it's starting to like Gran Turismo 7.
It didn't look good.
It looked fine, but like it didn't look to, like, better Forza, than the others.
Yeah.
Forza, what's the other one? I want to say it's not Grid, but it's like Bandai Namco's making a racing
I know
game now that looks really good. So like you have all these other racing games on the market and you look at Gran Turismo, you're like, you're supposed to be the king. Gran Turismo is supposed to be the king. And frankly,
I think Forza's been the king for a couple cycles now.
Wow. That was one where I'm just like, you guys have waited too long. Had that been a launch window game, perfect. Yeah. Perfect timing. And I don't know what's going on with that product. Maybe they're not satisfied with it and they want to like wait until like all these racing games are out so that they can, serve the PlayStation community better with that product. But sorry, I'm kind of going off on a tangent on Gran Turismo, but
we forgot it. So.
Yeah. Overall, great show. A-. I agree. People aren't going to remember the bad stuff. They're going to remember Wolverine, Spider-Man, Star Wars, God of War, right? That's going to be the takeaway, period. So Sony did a really good job. And this is the difference between doing one conference at a time when nobody's got anything going on. News has been slow. The whole last week has just been rumors about what could be at the PlayStation showcase or rumors about PlayStation 5 Pros that personally I think are absolutely ridiculous.
Yes.
So great show overall. Yeah. Any final thoughts, Paul, on anything? Radiohead.
No. My take on this for tomorrow, I'm probably writing about, is like, this kind of reinforces to me that while Xbox has come a long way, it still has a huge hill to climb. Because I've talked about all my little annoyances with PS5 and stuff, but like Sony still has this like first party hype thing down. And while we know a lot of potential good stuff is coming to Xbox, a lot of these are kind of unproven new franchises, or they are, they're bringing back really, really old franchises to the point where like they might as well be totally new, like Fable and Perfect Dark. And like, we know those names, but how are they going to work in practice? And like Halo Infinite multiplayer felt really good. And yet the campaign seems kind of like, what's going on with that? So like, even though, the Xbox is in a better spot than they used to be, and PlayStation might be in slightly of a worse spot with some of the decisions they've made, a show like this kind of reinforces that it's still like a pretty uphill battle to catch up with that kind of first party talent that they've been cultivating for like 20 years. Like, that is something that will take time. And I think everyone will have to be patient with Microsoft as they build that. But in a lot of ways, they are pretty behind in getting started on that.
Yeah. Xbox still has a great destination to play all the third party games. And they are just starting their first party library, so to speak, with huge titles coming this holiday like Halo Infinite, Forza Horizon 5. And I'm looking at Clobrill's layout. Sure, in 2022, Xbox has a very attractive library. We see Starfield, potentially Avowed, potentially Perfect Dark. We don't know what Contraband is. So to your point, Paul, like what is that game? Fable, we don't know what that's going to be. State of Decay 3, we haven't seen that. We haven't seen Outer Worlds 2. We haven't seen a new Gears. We haven't seen the Indiana Jones game. We haven't even seen we saw the teaser for Indiana Jones. We have no idea what's coming from Gears.
Totally forgot that existed until you brought that up again.
Yeah. And then there's other 100% titles.
Forgot.
Yeah, other titles like what do we got? Hellblade 2, Elder Scrolls 6, Everwild, Project Mara. Like I'm listing all these games. So they have stuff coming, but the problem is you're going up against Star Wars, Spider-Man, God of War, Wolverine. And Horizon Forbidden West.
It's so much easier to have faith in most of those games because one complaint I saw was like, okay, Sony didn't show enough gameplay footage. It's like, yeah, maybe, and maybe a lot of that was cinematic, but like I played God of War 1, I played Spider-Man 1, those gave me supreme confidence that the gameplay of the sequels or games by that same team are going to be really good. Whereas like you have a game like Perfect Dark, like it sounds cool that is coming back to life. I love the original Perfect Dark. That was on N64. Mm-hmm. Like this is whatever form it comes back in is going to be totally new. Like this is kind of a I forget which team is even building that. Is it the new one?
It's the initiative.
Right. So like that's, it's a super developer, whatever, but we don't know. They haven't produced anything specific from them yet. So like it's still just a bunch of question marks. And like hopefully best case scenario is all these games come out, they make really strong first impressions and they're great. And then when Perfect Dark 2 comes around, we don't have this conversation again because we're like, okay, Perfect Dark 1 was awesome. But we are just starting out on so many of these projects now that it is hard to have faith in too many of them kind of from the outset. The only one it's like a new IP that I still believe will be probably really solid at launch of Starfield because that's a huge Bethesda project, and we know Bethesda delivers these sprawling, high quality games over time. So, but it's going to take many, many years for Microsoft to actually debut these and then prove that they are rock solid. Yes, they are in the same league as Sony games. So I certainly hope that happens because more better games is good for everyone. But Sony has so much of a head start here.
Yep. And we don't even know what the rest of their slate is for 2023. Right now, it looks like near 2022, GTA 7, God of War is the end of 2022. 2023 is Spider-Man. 2024 is Wolverine. So Xbox, meanwhile, has a ton of stuff that's being developed, but they have not proven themselves yet. Very exciting library of stuff, but are they going to be good? I'm very confident about Forza Horizon 5. I think Halo is going to be Halo multiplayer, at least, is going to be good. Who knows about where the campaign lands, but it's a very interesting time. But hey, this is why competition is good. You're going to get a ton of Xbox stuff. I'm sure some of them will be good, and you're definitely going to get some amazing stuff from Insomniac and the other properties like Horizon, Death Stranding right around the corner, the re-release of that property, things that the voracious PlayStation fan base is already celebrating, and they're going to bring in new players with stuff like Star Wars. Like it's a no-brainer. So overall, great show. Thanks, Paul. That's all I really had for this episode.
Oh, well, I think we got through most of it.
Yeah, I think we covered it all. We'll be right back with the outro. That was a pretty lame transition to the outro. Paul, where can people find your stuff?
I'm at Paul Tassi on Twitter, Paul Tassi on YouTube, and you can Google me for my Forbes articles.
And you can find my stuff right here. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll catch you for the next one. Bye.